Hello, everybody. I'm Jeremy, owner-operator of Green 13 for 15 years. Third generation auctioneer and dealer of antiques and collectibles for over 30 years.
We are Lysandra and Tony from ilovediscounts_com. With 20 years of experience across brick and mortar, Amazon, eBay, and whatnot, we have built, broken, and rebuilt resale businesses, so you don't have to.
Hi, I'm Tracy, a CPA with over 30 years of audit and tax experience and have worked with businesses in various industries. I am also a seller on Whatnot, eBay, and Etsy.
Welcome to Reselling Roundtable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reselling Roundtable.
Hi, everyone. So today we're going to continue our analytics discussion from last week because while last week we talked about the analytics and what different analytics that you can pull and what their meaning was, we didn't really go over how you can put them together and what that means within your show. A combination of analytics can start telling you why it happened, where the bottleneck is, whether change actually worked, whether growth is healthy, whether you're trading profit for speed, whether you're attracting buyers or merely attracting eyeballs, and what you should change your next show. The goal isn't to have good numbers. The goal is to understand the relationship between the numbers. And this is kind of where I was getting a little giddy, and I know Tracy was, and Tony and Jeremy were just like, I don't know.
Whatever floats your boat.
So I'm going to keep it nice and short. We're going to do some rapid fire questions to kind of rehash the last episode, so we can kind of summarize it really quickly. So I'm going to keep it nice and simple for the first question. What's the first analytic you look at after a show?
Average order value.
Average order value.
Whatever you tell me to look at.
Oh my God. Average order value. And can you guys say what your average order value is in general, right off the top of your head without looking at papers?
I can.
Are you
By
asking
show,
for a number
too.
or just
Yes.
asking a yes or no?
It's a yes or no question.
There you go.
Yes,
Yes.
I know my average order value.
And we do too. Which number matters more to you? Or that one's stupid because we all want net. Anyway, which numbers matter more to you, gross sales or net earnings?
No, I mean, they both could be pretty good. Net earnings at the end of the day, but your gross sales is the leading indicator. So we could do the gross sales and then you can get net up. If your gross is up, your net can be up. So, I mean, I think they're kind of one and the
My
same.
my answer to that is going to be it depends. I think that's where
Yeah.
Tracy's going with it
Yeah.
too. Like, let's say, ultimately, net is always what you want to increase. You know, after everything's said and done, your net. But if I'm experimenting with a growth idea in order to capitalize on the future that's going to cause me to lose money as a result, then that's what I'm focusing on. And if that went up, then I'm happy with the results. And I do that quite frequently.
And then I was going to expand on that just a bit more in case anybody else is like, well, what does that mean? How do you apply it? Like what Jeremy says, if you're looking at growth, so first of all, you're looking at those gross numbers. A lot of your expenses are going to also grow in correlation to that growth, to that revenue growth, because you have expenses that are tied directly to the production of that revenue. But then you have a bunch of other more static operational expenses. So the first thing is to get that growth going, then take a step back and look at the expenses, either associated with it or your static expenses, to reduce or eliminate or do whatever you need to. Then that results in the net profit growth. So just to take it a couple steps further.
What's more important, average order value or solds per hour? Which also would go into your sell-through rate.
Jeremy, you want to go first?
Ask the question again, please.
What's more important, average order value or solds per hour?
They both work together.
They do.
That's essentially a trick question because
Oh my
if
God.
my average order value goes up high enough to make for fewer sales needed per hour, that's fine with me because that means if I need to spend time on things to get the extra money, it's time well spent. And then the other volume principle can be at play as well, where the amount of items I'm looking to sell during any given sale, which ultimately for me comes down to, you know, dollar amount for the time I spent at the end of the sale.
Hmm.
You know, how if that happens in volume or that happens in, you know, higher average order value. I can still reach what I'm trying to accomplish.
Tracy, you about to say?
Yeah, about the same. I think average order value is a little more important to me in the way I analyze, but I don't disagree with what Jeremy said at all.
So I have a question because I've been with the clothing shows. I've been looking at this really closely. Do you guys? And this isn't even on my question little list I have.
Hmm.
Do you guys look at your dollar amount of sales per hour?
Do look at the dollar amount of sales per hour.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying earlier. That's kind of like, you know, my dollar amount per sales per hour. If I'm trying to make X amount of dollars in the time frame that I've allotted for the sale, that's my dollars per hour. So if I got to get that by volume, or I got to get that, you know, if it's there in other attributes of like higher average order value, I'm happy, which is what I did this year.
Hmm.
I went from having higher volume numbers to lower volume, higher average order value, and concentrated on my profit numbers. And now I'm not working as much, making more money, and it's through higher average order value. But also, then now my goal is to start keeping that average order value there, and now go back and see if I can get the volume to lift, you know, the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't really like this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you rather have would you rather have 100 buyers buying once or 25 buyers buying four times?
Within the same
Depends
show
on
or
the
spread
tickets.
out over
Okay.
shows?
Yeah.
I would assume this is per show.
Are they all new buyers?
It doesn't say.
What's the difference?
So
I mean,
here's my kind
go
of
ahead.
question. So you ask the question again, just so I can make sure.
Would you rather have 100 buyers buying once or 25 buyers buying four times?
I'm with
Are
Bill.
we
25.
assuming that the
Yeah,
average order value? Are we assuming the average order value is the same for this type of show?
sure.
We would have
Okay.
to.
So I would not want, if they're repeat buyers, like Tony was leading to, I would rather have the smaller amount because I do free
Hmm.
shipping.
Yep.
Hmm.
If my
Yeah.
average order value is the same, if that's the scenario we're talking about.
And I was thinking less packing, which is what nine times put in the chat there. So that's
Yeah.
where my mind was going. Yeah,
And for you, that would be huge with
for
you
me
with all
that
the
would be.
breakables and stuff you sell.
Hmm.
Let's see here.
I agree with that, Bill.
Do you know your average solds per hour without looking?
I mean, I
My
could, but
average,
mine's a little different because I don't go on volume. So I have a set number of items I bring to each show. So I already know I run an hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes, and I can tell you exactly how many items I'm bringing to every show for the next 3 months. Like there's no question in my mind.
So you pretty well
So
do.
yeah,
my average sold like units, items,
Yeah.
you're asking? No, I don't know, but my sell-through rate's basically 100%. So you know, I don't, whatever I can do the number really easy, you know, easily at the end of the show. That's
It's an
not a
easy
problem.
one.
Yeah.
What's a better show? $8 average order value at 20 solds per hour or $4 average order value at 50 solds per hour?
you're making me do math. I can't answer that off the top of my head.
Aren't you an
Yeah.
accountant?
I'll take the
I'd
20
work in
sold,
debits and
not
credits.
knowing
Come
what
on
cost of
now.
goods is.
Okay, what was the math there? Hold on. What was those numbers?
$8 average order value at 20 solds per hour or $4 average order value at 50 solds per hour.
But I think
technically the lower average order value is more at the end
is
of the
more
show,
money,
but there's more packing, there's more work at the end.
and what's your cost of goods? I could be at the 160 with the lower cost of goods and make more money than at the 200.
Yeah, there's too many other factors. And you know me, I'm going to want to know how many first time buyers am I getting out of
Yep.
the lower order value, because that's where you get people to start buying into your brand.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong with having that, and I mean, there's just too many factors for me to be able to answer that. I mean, you could just do the simple math and say, based on no other factors being the case, then you just use the simple math, but that's never going to be the case in live selling. That's not going to happen. Day off, no math. Yes.
There's always math in Los Angeles world, man.
There is. I was a craft dealer. I used to do it 8 hours all day long as a job.
Always math.
Is a low average order value always bad?
No.
No.
Again, there's a lot of other factors.
There is.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you, for instance, when I started in jewelry, my average order value was super, super low. And I tried to get as many items done because I knew that would result in a higher amount of new buyers that I needed in order to start supporting my direction towards jewelry.
What's more concerning, views dropping or unique buyers dropping?
You mean new buyers, as in for unique buyers? Is that the same?
Individual
Yes.
buyers. You're talking new or?
I mean, unique would be just individual buyers
Yeah, that's
dropping.
what I would
but
say. Yeah.
So
What's
you're
the-
saying, okay, instead of like what we were talking about earlier before we went on, how one person buys a large quantity of your show,
Mhm.
you're asking about unique buyers. So which one's which? What are
What's
we
more
comparing?
concerning, views dropping or unique buyers dropping?
Can I?
Unique buyers.
For me, I want to know what's my conversion rate. If I'm converting them, then I don't care if my views are dropping because the ones coming in, I'm converting. But if my conversion rate is low, then I need more buyers coming in. Then I need to increase my funnel to get them in. So it depends what my conversion rate is.
Yep.
From taking that question at face value, unique buyers dropping from show to show would tell me that I'm losing buyers, and that's not what I want. If I see a pattern of that, I don't want to see that. Views dropping and everything else stays the same, I'm not panicking until I start seeing data that's eating into unique buyers then dropping or something like that, because we all know views dropping can be corrected with a lot easier, I believe, and optically you can create things that are going to create views. But unique buyers dropping, something fundamental, a little more financially fundamental is going on there, in my opinion.
Did I hear Jeremy hint that a giveaway could fix view dropping?
And, I mean, I never said giveaways don't increase views. I say increasing views via giveaways is still a waste of money and time and valuable resources.
No.
That kind of leads into the next question. Does a huge audience automatically mean you're having a good show?
No.
Of course not.
No.
We all know that one.
And what's the most overrated whatnot analytic?
Followers.
Followers or views? Viewers or what is it, maxing current viewer or something like that?
Viewers, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if people tell, but I don't put a whole lot of stock into that.
Yeah.
And what's the most underrated whatnot analytic?
Underrated?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question.
I would have to say
I think sell-through rate.
Sell-through rate or repeat buyer. I don't think enough people pay attention to them.
Well, I think sell-through rate just because it's something that you have to calculate yourself.
Yeah.
And it's not a number that whatnot just feeds you. So I don't think a lot of people really look at that. And time is money at the end of the day. And your sell-through rate dramatically affects that.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't. I think there's probably a couple that come in as a tie, and I think those would be some of those. I mean, returning buyers is also, that's really. I don't like. That's what you're talking about, right, Tracy? Repeat buyers, your
Repeat
returning
buyers,
buyers,
yeah.
someone's coming back. If you see that going down, it's the same type of situation where there's something wrong.
Something's. Yep.
So my next series of questions really was just trying to set the pathwork to how the numbers correlate together, but I feel like we've already kind of done that with the 10 questions I already did. I'm going to hand this off to Tracy because I know she's got some stuff prepared. She's like, oh,
I do, and I don't want to jump into like, just a bunch of analytics. I mean, I know that's our conversation, but I think the main point that I want to make, what I was thinking going into this, and I do have some examples of different analytics that work together and how we use those for decisions, but it's you get the data, and a lot of people just stop there. A lot of people are like, oh, that's a cool report, and then don't do anything with it. So it's like we get the data, we use it to make a decision, and then we turn that into the analytics into something actionable at that point. That's where it drops off. So a lot of people, I think, you come to Whatnot, these reports are there, and you're like, oh, this screen is cool, it's my analytics screen, or they've got the new ones that now you can pop it out and look at after the show. And I think we spend a lot of time looking at those numbers, and you're like, oh, okay, that's really neat, and then you close the screen and you walk away and you never do anything with it. That makes that information useless at that point if you don't take the
mm-hmm.
next step and use it to say, okay, what is this telling me? What is this along with other analytics telling me, which gets to our point of how do we combine analytics? And now what am I going to do with this information to make my business better? So turning your analytics into actionable items to me is the key of what we're talking about tonight. I'm going to throw a couple out there. These are three analytics that I think are three of the, I mean, besides average order value, but three that are really good that you can use in combination with each other. Your buyer conversion rate, revenue per buyer, and sales per hour. If we look at those three together, I have like four different examples of using those three in different ways and looking at them compared to each other, which can lead you to identifying problems in your business and then how to fix them. And I'll kind of
You know,
turn
I
it
don't
over and
think
we can
I've
go back
ever
to it.
looked at I don't think I've ever looked at revenue per buyer. Like, are you talking about like an average revenue per buyer?
Hmm. Yep, gross sales divided by your unique. Looking at it's just the
Hmm.
economic value of a buyer, so it's going to get help you start to determine maybe your product mix. Maybe you're looking at your quality. Might start looking at your starting prices. If your average per buyer is pretty low, are they just buying one thing? Why aren't they buying more? Why can't I get that higher? So this kind of goes back to your questions before of, do you want somebody just buying one thing, or do you want somebody buying four things? So why aren't they spending more money in my shows? And when I was taking some notes on this, I was like, you know what? This goes back to our free shipping, and we can't get people off of those one item purchases. So we start thinking about why is my revenue per buyer not increasing with my free shipping? So not that we're talking about free shipping, but those are the three that I think if you can mix and match them very well to tell you a lot initially about what's happening. And we'll go into examples later. I want to hear kind of what's on Jeremy's mind or Tony's mind.
Go ahead.
I'm waiting for Tony's mind.
Look, Tony's the type of person that I sat down and made a whole table and I said, "Hey, go in the computer and go look at this table about some metrics on the clothing shows of what we're going to need for average order values, rates sold per hour and all this other stuff and the different scenarios and how they'll work out." 2 hours later, I said, "Hey, did you go look at that table?" He says, "No. Why can't you just tell me?" I'm like, because it'd take me a half hour when you could just look at a table for 5 minutes that I created for you to make it easy.
Or I can just turn the camera on and go live.
But it's in Tony's defense, and I'm not saying that you don't know how to read a table, so please don't think that that's what I'm saying. But
I know.
there's a lot of people that don't they were never taught that. They were never taught to look at a table or look at a graph or to identify trends or to see the correlation between numbers and then be able to pull that correlation out and make a decision based on that. That's not a skill that a lot of people just come to reselling with. A lot of people come to reselling because they love the items they're selling, they're into the clothing, they're into the jewelry, they just want to make money at the end of the day. And this is what I find a lot during my chat shows with the questions I get is They're not accountants. They're not here because they went into reselling, not accounting. So these are skills that a lot of people have to learn as business owners. So a lot of it just doesn't come naturally to many people.
In my defense, whether it's good or bad, I'm not going to spend a ton of time looking at numbers while we're restarting with clothing. I'll look at snapshots. What was the gross sales? How many items did we sell? What was our average order value? And then give me the net after all of this crazy shipping that we're dealing with right now. I'll look more, not show by show so much, but week by week to see if it's doing any growing. Is anything getting any better? But we've only done 3 shows on clothing, and that's where all of our analytics are coming from. And I don't need to spend that much time on show to show.
Actually, this was a table based off of average order value. What would our net be if we got $3 average order value? And what would it be if it was 4, 5, 6? And what would the net be after? So we have goals to reach towards.
I
And
have goals without that table.
I think you hit I think you hit on such a good point there. And this is something that I'm constantly preaching on. Our data is the data that we have is to look at the history and make decisions in order to make decisions for the future and to do projections, set goals, have a path, have a plan. Looking at, I mean, Lysandra, I love that you're doing all these charts and figuring out if I hit this, if I hit that. I mean, that's how I operate on a show to show basis is by, I know exactly what my average order value should be, exactly how many items I'm bringing, exactly how long I'm going to be selling for. Like it's planned out. Because I mean, that's how I operate, but it's not when we're talking analytics, it's not just looking at what happened in the past. This isn't just history, because if you have sucky analytics, I mean, it's just going to keep repeating itself unless you do something different and make a plan to do something different. So your projections are just as vital. And then once you do the projections, I'm just let me get on my soapbox for a second, Tony. Once you do the projections, then you go through and you do your shows, then you have some more data that you compare to your projections to get the variance to figure out, was I high when I made these projections, or was I pretty on point, or where am I not doing well enough to get to those projections? So it's this full circle. It's not just kind of let's sit there and do nothing.
In my defense, how much real conversation did we have talking about the exact same things that was in those tables before you said, hey, go read all those tables?
Yeah, but that was numbers in your head, and your math in your head doesn't always compute.
Maybe
correctly.
Not. But how much time did we spend actually talking about those numbers? How much conversation did we have is my question.
Oh, I don't know. We talk a lot.
A couple hours minimum. We had just talked about it for a couple of hours. And then she went into ChatGPT, ran everything, came up with all these tables, and said, here, go read all these tables.
One table. It was
I'm good.
One.
I just had a 2-hour conversation about it. I'm good right now.
But he did tell me to go and compute numbers afterwards.
There you go.
Anyway. Is that what you have to say?
That's what I had to say.
It's your turn, Jeremy.
There you go.
I have an analytics metric. I like doing this kind of stuff. I'm throwing a whole curveball into the conversation, kind of. I like to look at numbers and see if I can find associations and something to pull out of it. So I just looked at some numbers and I noticed a pattern. 2 different numbers. My Friday shows, on average, have the highest returning buyers, but it's the lowest grossing sale. So what does that tell us? Does it tell us anything, or is it just fun numbers to look at?
Well, that probably means that your average order values may be lower, or that you're selling less auctions per show. I know that they're larger items, so your shipping costs are more.
Maybe it's your jewelry people returning back to the Friday shows, but they don't necessarily like stuff as much as they do jewelry. Because they're returning buyers, right?
My returning buyers is the highest on my Fridays on average, and it's the lowest grossing. Gross, not the lowest grossing sale.
But you're comparing it to your jewelry, or you're comparing it just because you can't, that's not apples to apples. You have such a broad mix of items on your Friday show compared to
Yeah.
jewelry.
I
So this is where I'm, but the analytics is utilizing the comparative. It also as far as giving it the percentages, it gives those percentages to tell you if it's up or down as well. So
I
it's utilizing that across all the shows. So I'm just curious if that what that tells you. I don't know what it tells
I
you. I just thought it was kind
I
of fun to
personally
I
would
throw
would
look
this
at
out there to
ask,
see if it tells
yes.
anything worthwhile or it's
Well,
just a waste of time.
I would ask because not every show is about, don't get this wrong. Not every show is about the ultimate profit of the show. Since that shows your lowest grossing, but you obviously have the repeat buyers, it's bringing that entertainment value, it's bringing them back to you. So is this just engagement? Is this just retention? Is that show sufficient enough to be a retention show for you if it's not a profit show, where your other ones are your profit show? So what's the goal of
oh,
the show?
oh,
If the goal is to make
how
money, then maybe it's not the right show.
wait, hold on. What is the profit margin on the Friday show?
What's the
That
profit margin
I mean, it's the lowest
or the
grossing,
profit?
but is it profitable? I mean, are you averaging per item, per sale, per hour? Are you averaging a comparable profit to
Okay.
the
Here's
lower
I'm going to
profiting jewelry?
answer. I'll answer the question. Profit margin on my Friday show, margin is higher, but profit on my Friday show is lower.
Lower.
So you have a lower cost of goods basically on the Friday shows.
Yes.
Okay. But you still have overhead, you still have employees and anything else that you
Yeah.
have to
Well,
pay for.
that when I say profit, I'm counting
Yeah.
also like it's the most shipping intensive, most
Yep.
labor intensive,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
everything
Yep.
is involved in there. But
So, are you running the same amount of auctions in that show compared to your jewelry shows? Like your jewelry show could be
uh,
like 250, 270, right?
yeah, my last Friday show was 240.
So you're running about the same number of auctions. So, sounds to me like your average order value is lower.
My average order value is
It has to be lower.
It
Has
has
to
to
be
be
if
lower than the
if your
jewelry
gross,
shows.
yeah.
Unless they're
it's
gross.
lower.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
lower.
If your gross is down, it has to be. Those
Yeah,
two
yeah.
correlate.
It's definitely lower.
So,
I love the look on his face. Oh yeah, it's
okay.
definitely lower.
So
Yeah,
there's
it's
two.
lower. I was
Look
going to
at
see
that
what it
though.
was.
If you wanted to gross more, then you need to raise your average order value. So, do you bring higher quality products, or do you sell more during that show?
Again, my question is are the numbers that I'm giving even relevant? Does it even matter? Like, I
Yeah, of
mean,
course they are. I mean,
I,
if
I
I was looking
the
at those,
observation, that's what I like to do is I like to go in there sometimes
I mean,
because I'm being a geek.
you've
I'm like,
talked
does this
about
tell
this
me
already.
anything?
You've talked about this already about maybe changing your Friday show because of other reasons. But if you're looking at it day to day, if it's your lowest grossing and your lowest profitable, why are you doing it?
And
Because it's your longest running show. I understand that, but
and I
why would you
sorry.
go
So
ahead?
you're asking why, but I think Tracy was saying the same thing though. What's the goal of the show? Is
Could it be
it supposed to
retention?
be a profit
Mhm.
producing show, or is it for all of your old school fans to come hang out for the day?
Is it the old
And
school fans or
keep
is it
them
just your
around.
day to day people?
That's the big question because if you could
Right.
know that the retention element of brand buy-in, it would be useful if I kept getting buyers back, but you don't know what the mix is.
So I want to take this one step further. So if you looked at the numbers and you said, you know what, I really like to do this show, the gross that I'm making is still in an acceptable range, but I want to make more. So now we go to, okay, we know the buyers are there, we know the repeat buyers are there. So the next question for me would be the taking it to the way you sell. It would be okay. So you sell one way for jewelry. Is the way you sell for vintage the same as jewelry? Does it work? Now that I know the numbers, just assuming, okay, I know these numbers. I want to keep up with this show, but I need to raise that average order value. I need to raise that gross. How am I going to do that? And not that
I,
we're trying to solve your problem, but I'm trying to draw the correlation of you take all of these numbers and go into the next decision and the next question and the next decision.
I
I
don't see it
can
as a problem. I see it as a data points to observe and see if which way I could potentially go, because I could look at it from the opposite end of the spectrum and go, what can I do in my jewelry shows to increase the repeat buyer number and still
Absolutely.
get rid of the most costly show in all my shows.
Absolutely. Either way, I love it. To me, like you're pulling numbers, and I'm like, okay, what questions does this come up with next? And keep
Uh-huh.
digging and digging. This is the beauty of your analytics. Literally, your analytics can solve just about any business problem outside of human relationship type things. They can really give you answers to just about anything. You just got to keep digging enough and asking questions.
I'm
And
sorry.
then
I got lost on the image of Jeremy pulling an item off the shelf and saying, "Here we have a Fenton hobnail vase."
But okay, let's take Jeremy out of the
Trying to
equation.
figure
Let's
out why
take.
you were laughing at
I want to
numbers.
kind of make this. I want to make this more broad to everybody here. Is if you're doing two very different types of shows, maybe it's a book show and a jewelry show, or books and clothes, and you look at numbers like Jeremy's looking at two very different types of shows, and you're like, I want to keep this up. Then you start asking questions. This is a way to start to look at things that aren't apples to apples and draw conclusions on how I can change something.
yeah, I agree. I'm also looking at this from a perspective of, is that a meaningful number that I need to take into account to see if there's a reason to keep the Friday show around at all? Or am I just being distracted by that number? Because to me, that number means brand buy-in and future revenue growth. But if it is just people that are coming back to my Friday show and that's it, they're like almost their own unique category of people that, like Tony said, I've been running that Friday show for basically the 5 years I've been on.
Mm-hmm.
That has not been the case with my jewelry show. So could it just be a reflection of that? And it's not really doing anything for me as far as brand buy-in. It's the people that bought into the Friday brand and aren't interested in the jewelry. So since I have that there, is that really what's going on with that? Because that's the
I
longest
would
sale I've had.
I would look at it over the last 6 months. What has it done as far as numbers, right? I would say if over the last 6 months it's consistently lower profitably than the rest of your other shows, the question becomes, are you running it because of the brand buy-in and because of the historical value of running that for your 5 years on Whatnot? Do you just like running that stuff? Do you intend on getting better stuff to run in your vintage home decor shows?
Well, I can tell you right now
Sure.
that show it was my insurance, because when I decided to go into jewelry, I didn't know or have any idea the longevity that was going to be made available to me and what was going to happen. So you're going in. So if I already had an established revenue avenue that was fine and dandy, and something new came along that was better, I wait to make sure that what's better can continue to be better, and then you have that as a fail safe.
Yeah.
And
I
now I'm at the point where it is obvious to me that the jewelry is hands down the
Yeah.
winner.
I was
So
going to say, I
now
feel
the
you should be
opportunity, now you
confident you
start
don't need a
talking,
fail safe.
yeah, now you start talking about opportunity costs,
Yes.
but
And
that's not really analytics.
I'm going to answer Noel's statement because I'm the exact opposite. So Okra XW is Noel in the chat if no one knows. But
Thanks for calling them out.
You've
he
just
said, as
outed
a
him
buyer in jewelry,
completely.
if I buy a ring, unless the next ring is an amazing one, I wouldn't consider buying two or more. But as a buyer that's a reseller, if there's good deals and I can make money on it, I'll buy 50 rings.
So what are we
What does that have
referencing
to do
here?
with Fridays? I know.
I'm just
I could
curious.
just see that look. It's like,
I think
why are
I
we
think
talking about
Noel's
Fridays?
point is the fact that in the vintage he's more apt to buy
Buy more.
multiple items versus jewelry.
Yes.
Lysandra, many other resellers, we don't really care what the product is. If it's something we can sell and make money on, we'll buy as much as we can afford to buy. So, but I understand Noel's talking not necessarily from a reseller perspective, more of a consumer. And that's a fair point.
So what do we go to next? I just, like I said, I just threw that observation out just to see what would come up, what would come out of it for conversation's sake. So,
I mean, honestly, Jeremy, I don't know how much lower the numbers are on the Friday show versus the rest of it, or profitability wise. But I mean, it's really something you got to look at. Like you said, right now it's the opportunity cost, right? Can you run a Friday show with jewelry and make double over what you can on the vintage with the same ease of shipping? What were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I can do a jewelry show on Friday. I've done it already in the past a couple times, experimental ones, and it immediately makes more money than that.
Has your average order value? I'm looking at Kate's comment, and it makes me wonder: has your average order value in your Friday show went down over time?
My average order value? No.
Well, over what time? Over the last 6 months or over the last 5 years?
I would say just over since you started converting to jewelry with your other shows.
I guarantee it's lower today than it was 4 years ago when that's when he was doing it often, right?
4 years ago is irrelevant to today in the sense of analytics. It's too far back. So like one thing when we're looking at analytics and trends, you could only go so far back and before it starts to become useless information or just so outdated that it doesn't reflect what today's reality is. So like with analytics, we're usually doing a year over year at best. Maybe we have a 2-year look back. Very rare cases, it's usually we're looking at a quarter, we're looking at trends over a quarter, 6 months, a year, then we do some year over year analysis. Is the typical, not the only way to do it, but kind of what we
my
do
average
generally.
order value has risen across the board.
On Friday?
It's just not as profitable as the jewelry. And the average order value is lower than the jewelry, but it still is going up.
Then here's your question. Here's your question. Do you like Friday?
I like profit. So there's your
You
answer.
like Friday. You're going to have profit either way, right?
No. More profit. I like better than less profit. So that you can come to the conclusion.
I'm inferred that jewelry is better than the other stuff. I got it. But the question is, what do you like? Because obviously the Friday show is growing. How much longer do you want to mess around with Friday and see if it becomes as profitable as a jewelry show? And do you still want to keep shipping that kind of stuff?
Isn't the Friday show always bogged down by labor hours though? Because it takes more than 2 people to run that show, right? And it's definitely longer in shipping.
My everything across the board. My shipping, if it wasn't for Friday, would probably be less than 1 day shipping, as opposed to 1 day shipping.
Yeah.
The shipping
And
for
sometimes
vintage,
I'm almost surprised sometimes that we don't tick over into the 2 day shipping time frame because of how backed up the Friday show gets. And the only reason we don't tip into 2 days because they use a more accurate average, I believe, now than they did in the past. Because then we get caught up and everything gets shipped out same day for the last half of the week, whereas the first half of the week we're behind.
Yeah.
And I don't like that at all. And there's no reason for me to hire more people. But now we're really digging into, I don't know, I mean, we're digging into more business principles than we are analytics.
You brought up a scenario, though. You brought up a scenario that people are looking at.
The good thing is, this is what we wanted to talk about. Yeah. You pull out some numbers and find out what it could potentially tell you in order to make business decisions based on what those numbers are potentially telling you.
Me personally, based on what I've just heard, I'd make Blue 14 your Friday show every single day. I'd make Green 13 my jewelry show every single day because obviously you're still going to get the Friday stuff.
But now he's got to hire more people.
But you can but you can completely separate it out on a full-time thing and run the numbers that way. And well, that's as far as I'm going to go with that.
So,
I don't want to say anything further. That's as far as I need to go with that.
so I'm curious, Lysandra, what are two or three numbers or analytics that you look at in combination on a regular basis? What's something that you do in your business?
So I will say that historically we have always dealt with low average order value items. So sold per hour is really important to us.
Sold per hours, the number one.
And so, and this, and the clothing, right? In general, especially starting in a new category, it doesn't matter how established we are, we're going to have a lower average order value. So when I'm looking at the clothing shows, I'm looking at our sell through rate, our average order value, and solds per hour. And and just because it has a low average order value doesn't mean that it's not a money making show. Does mean you're shipping more out though at the end if you're trying to get out 60 items per hour. And as we grow, the idea is to raise that average order value. And Jeremy talks about it a lot with loss leaders. And we'll start, once I have a baseline price of these bales, I feel like we will start purchasing loss leaders to kind of throw in the mix and see what we can make of it to raise that average order value while keeping 60 sold items an hour with a 95 or better percent sell-through rate.
Oh dear God, please. What are we at now, sell-through? 75?
56.
56.
56 sold per hour, but our sell-through rate is anywhere between 74 and 85%. So you're running fast.
Yeah, so that means I'm running 130 items in an hour.
No, it's less than that.
I'm selling 60 items an hour. I got a 56% sell-through rate. I'm running 115, 120 items an hour. That was just math off the top of my head.
Look at
No,
you.
because that's 15% on 115 would only be 17 items. See, his math in his head does not compute. That's why you have to put it down on paper.
This is fun. We're doing a bunch of math.
I like math.
I know, apparently.
I'm confused how I'm getting 60 items an hour with a 54% sell-through rate, 50 auctions per hour with a 56% sell-through rate, but I'm only selling 17 items an hour.
No.
Oh,
So
wait.
You should
Well,
be
while
selling
you do
close to
math-
30 or 40 at that rate per hour.
Get him an abacus. Go ahead, Jeremy. What?
So I'm curious. You asked the question. I'm assuming you have ones that you utilize yourself, Tracy.
I do, yeah. So, like I said, average order value I look at. That's like my top number one analytic. But in combination, I have a spreadsheet, and on after every single show, it's gross, average order value, and my shipping as a percent of gross. And I look at that and I analyze that very heavily to help me determine what I'm buying, what I'm sourcing that week, and what I'm putting into the next show of a similar type. So if my shipping is out of whack for some reason, I'm taking a look again. Okay, what was I selling? Did I put too many big items? So I use that as a way to guide my decisions on what I'm putting into shows. I'm not getting away from big items. I sell vintage. I mean, I can get away from very, very oversized items to some degree. But I mean, I sold a pottery bowl the other day that's 8 pounds. It's going to happen. But understanding how that affects me on the different types of shows has really helped. Where, like, looking at those, I've been able to, like, I know now, glowy glass, when I do a glowy glass show, I don't sell any more than about 50 pieces. When I do primitives, I can get upwards of 80. If I'm looking at a mixed vintage, I can do 100, 120, all within about the same shipping cost. So I use those analytics on a regular basis to help guide in the future, and it really helps me know how much of various types of vintage that I can sell and keep within a certain shipping budget.
we're actually looking at the shipping costs a lot more now too. And we were just talking about it right before the podcast. 50 pounds of clothing is expensive to ship out.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
so and where we historically would stay between 5 and 7% of our gross sales and shipping costs, adjustments on the back end of what we paid out for shipping. With clothing, especially right now where average order value is pretty low, it's creeping up there like 20-25%. And I'm just like, whew, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like those high percentage numbers. So I've been looking at that really hard too.
Well, that's how I look at some numbers a lot more as far as those numbers because I'm doing free shipping.
Mm-hmm.
So like those after fees just really start affect. Like again, my Friday show,
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing free shipping on my Friday show.
Yeah.
So
I feel
Wow,
it. I
really?
feel you on
Yeah, we
that.
started a couple weeks ago.
What are you, a
Yeah.
glutton for punishment?
no, it's fine. Like that,
Oh,
just to break it down for you. I'll just break this down. After all, I did a show on Friday. Okay, we sold maybe 2/3 of one van. That equates to 4 to 5 van loads full of stuff from this purchase I made.
mhm.
After I pay all the fees, it's probably going to cost me a total of $1,500 in shipping costs, and then after fees and everything, I'm still after paying everything, I'm going to make a few dollars more than my expense for the entire pile of stuff I bought. So now I have 4+ van loads full of merchandise to sell that is nothing but profit.
That's all profit.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Now,
I wanted
but
to.
again, that's kind of an anomaly. Those are the ones that everyone likes to catch. That was just a big lucky a lucky deal. If all my shows were like that, then we'd be talking different for my Friday shows. Because now every Friday
Yeah.
show I have, or every book sale I decide to do, children's book sale that I'm going to have, is nothing but profit. So I'll be doing free shipping. I don't care. It'll be a good old time. But that's not usually the case. Obviously, that's not the case because I told you earlier. You know, my margins, have to be good on those shows in order to be able to make money. But they're not that good. They're
Right.
not where I have 4+ van loads full of free profit.
For another example too on how shipping and your gross correlate to each other. So I just did in my monthly primitive show. My gross was down about 20% for that show from trending. I was trending down about 20%. My shipping stayed the same though, because it was the exact same number of items. So then now I need to ask myself, why was my gross down? Obviously, my average order value is down. Was my quality not good? Was my presentation not good? Was it an off day? Can this continue? No. So it's like, okay, is this an anomaly? I'll do another show. I'll compare it. If I still see a downward trend, then I need to step back and say, okay, I need to fix something. So this is using those because the shipping stayed the same. Just because my gross went down doesn't mean my shipping went down. That's one of the reasons why I'm always watching the correlation on that, because it's a really fast and quick indicator if I need to do something different in the show or nip it in the bud before it costs me way too much money.
Yep. I don't want to do Jeremy's Friday show, and I don't want to do any of your shows on Whatnot, Tracy.
Well, I had shifted my Friday show as well because some of these revelations that we're talking about through doing analytics and comparative based, comparing the analytics from one style of show, jewelry, to the Friday show. And I told you the reason I was keeping my toe in that lake, so to speak, of the estate sales, end of things as opposed to the jewelry. But I completely lost my train of thought, to be honest with you. I was going somewhere.
Now that is a first
I
I've
looked
ever
over
heard
here
from
and I'm
you.
like, there was something I was getting ready to say, and it just completely went right out the brain. It'll come back later.
I'll
We
go
gotta
back
talk
to
about
Tony's
something else.
math. Tony shows 71 items per hour with an 85% sell-through rate to sell 60 items per hour.
But that's different numbers than what you gave initially. You told me I had about a 56% sell-through rate.
No, 56 items. And we in our first show we had a 74% sell-through rate. Our second and third show we had an 85% sell-through
85,
rate.
85 is better. And I would have come up with a different number if you just said that. Look,
I
we're
want
going to
to
spat about analytics.
Marital
And
fun stuff over here.
let's walk through. I wrote down a couple of examples. Let's walk through 2 examples for everybody here to think about how to use some numbers together, and then we'll see if that spurs other topics as we go through this. So let's think about if you have high viewers in your room. So your viewer rate is good, but you have low conversion rate and low revenue per buyer. So if we're looking at this, we've got enough people in our room, because isn't this what we always hear on Whatnot? I don't have enough people in my room. So you got a whole bunch of people in there, but you're not turning those viewers into buyers, and you're not, obviously it's a low revenue per buyer for the ones that are buying. All right, so then we go to the next step. It's not an audience problem. It's not getting people in your room because they're there. What are we looking at? Product, pricing, execution, experience. So looking at go ahead.
My first goes to quality of product, and then what's your pricing on that product?
Yep.
Or is the host having a train wreck show?
Sounds like you're
Everybody's
doing
just there for the train wreck.
Sounds like you're doing giveaways.
So you need to fix something that really isn't even a number thing to fix. Maybe price, but quality and experience, which aren't number things, but you learn to fix those by reading the numbers. So there's a whole flow. Let's flip that around. You have low viewers, okay, whatever low means to you in your normal course of business, but you have high conversion and high revenue per buyer.
Sounds like a great show.
Sounds like a good show, but what can you fix? What does that tell you?
Your exposure. You need to figure out how to get more exposure for your
Open
show.
up
Is
that
what that
funnel.
tells
Yep.
you.
Yep, get more people coming in, because you're converting the ones that are there. So you got the right mix going on, but let's get some more coming in the room. Let's look at our thumbnails. Let's look at our marketing. Let's look at our word of mouth, whatever it is that we're doing to get more people in. It's not about what you're doing in the show. So you see, like, 2 very different examples tells you exactly where to focus your efforts.
But if you have a lower room count and all those numbers are on the high side, including your new buyer count, first time buyer count, you would be concerned then about trying to get more people in your room?
I wouldn't necessarily be concerned, but I would know that what I'm doing is working. And the more people I got in the room, if I continue doing what I'm doing, should increase the sales at that point. That is how my mind would go to figure.
And I think we all know that you have to keep people revolving door in and out of the room, because your existing buyers are only going to stay there for so long in mass, right?
The reason I asked that question that way, because it could be my product mix could cause the room count to be low and all the other numbers still high. Like, let's say I'm selling jewelry and I hit a block of rings, my room count's going to drop, but my dollar amounts it literally just happened to me the other week. I think it was on Monday, a week ago, where I hit a rings, and the people loved the rings. Room count went down, but my price per knockdown was way higher than the previous. I don't know how much time, the entire sale, all the hour, the hours before. My room count went down, my numbers went up, and my first time buyer count started going higher.
But that's only good for so long, right? That's only good for.
What's that?
That's only good for so long.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that with the way I sell, that kind of thing happens on a frequent basis. And on the opposite side, where it can go down, where my room count can be going up because of what I have, but it's because it hits a broader cross section of people's interest, but my new buyer count drops and my items, amount per item sold drops. So that's kind of the product, kind of relates to the product mix, not so much the marketing outside of it for the way I sell, because I've noticed that a lot.
And Tony and I talked about this a lot in jewelry when we decided to split up the earrings out of the show. We knew, as far as viewer count, those shows were going to be low, much lower than a mixed random jewelry pool. But the idea was that even though the viewer count was lower, those were buyers for earrings, versus allowing the earrings to bring down the room count where we're selling everything else. Because let's face it, not a ton of people love earrings.
No, they don't. Actually, some people do, but yeah,
Some people do.
it's a harder crowd to get rocking and rolling for sure.
It is.
But the only thing I'm pointing out is I don't think either of us are wrong in our observations. It's just you have to take into account the way you're selling. Because Tracy,
Absolutely.
yours is more of a curated situation where
Hmm.
you're not going to randomly come across a pile of something you didn't know was there,
Correct.
like I do.
Yes. Yep.
I pull out a bag or a tote, I'm just like, oh, here's a big pile of rings,
Hmm.
and it just changed the entire dynamic of everything. Which the way you view your data, what you're looking at is could be a red flag.
Hmm.
Me, if I looked at it in the same way, I could be looking at it completely wrong.
Correct.
It could have just been
Yeah.
because I came across something in the way that I'm selling, and that would lead me to another metric we don't really. I don't know if you consider it analytics, but I kind of would lump it in, is going back and watching your shows once you look at your analytics to determine why things may have happened, so you don't overcompensate, undercompensate, or just read into them in the wrong way, or if you
Hmm.
look at them in an inaccurate perspective.
I used to take notes of if I saw a big dip in our room count in our show. I used to take notes of the time in our show that happened, so I could go back and rewatch the show during that time to see if it was something that we did to cause that.
And I want to, I totally agree. And I think I want a point on each one of those that was just said. I think you make a good point, Jeremy, that none of these numbers exist in a vacuum. There, it's not just I'm going to look at the black and white on the paper. It's you have
Mhm.
to take into consideration, like you're saying, all of the factors. It's like when I talk tax, I'm like I can give you the general rules, but everybody has their unique set of facts and circumstances that you need to consider. So totally agree with that. Um, and then watching your shows and going back, Lysandra, totally agree. I find it interesting, and this isn't something that it's just more of a recent kind of thing that I've noticed. When I'm in the show, I'm not watching any of that. Like, I'm not watching room count. I do everything I can not to really look at analytics a whole lot during the show. I go by, I want to say go by feeling. I hate saying I go by feeling, but I think you get to the
Yeah.
point where you're watching the sales, and I kind of know, I can kind of guess what my
Mhm.
average order value is going to be without looking. Um, but I'm not really looking at that. However, at the end of the show, or if Noel starts to talk a bit and I'm just sitting there while he's talking, my eyes start to wander. So the point I'm trying to make is if you have a mod or if you have somebody else, if you're not the one in the middle of it, it's easy to watch that and analyze it in real time. And
Mhm.
but if you're running by yourself, you have to watch your show to go back and analyze that in that manner. There's no other way to do that. Like I can't do it when I'm selling, but when he's talking and I can take a step back, totally could analyze stuff in real time. But
And that's one way we're lucky to be running as a duo, right? Because
mm-hmm,
I'm just kind of, although I'm part of the show, I'm mainly in the background, and I can try to pay attention to certain things that really Tony, as the person engaging with everybody, shouldn't be concerned about within the show.
mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask Millicent to. I'm not sure what your question is asking. Is anyone asking the buyers?
I'm
Like,
assuming that's what do they want to have run in the show?
is anyone asking the buyers if they want rings or how they want stuff run? Or is that what you're asking?
You got
I
like 20
wonder if they're
seconds left.
talking
You're not
just
gonna.
getting
Yeah.
feedback from buyers because I think we get a ton of feedback from buyers as sellers if you're open to paying attention to it. How they're bidding, how fast they're bidding, how they're chatting,
Yeah.
what they're saying, how high the bids are going. I think there's a ton of feedback that we're getting immediately in the show without having to physically or verbally ask something. Reading your reviews after the show. I mean, I think there's a ton of data and metrics that the buyers are giving us on a regular basis.
So my thought process is yes, while you can take some preliminary market research, the the data doesn't lie. And if you're and one, you can't you can't please everybody as a seller. So sell the way that makes you happy and sell what makes you happy,
Hmm.
whether if it's Jeremy's case where it's just about profit and profit's what makes him happy, or if you're one of those people that needs to be interested in the items in order to sell it effectively. But if an audience or a particular person doesn't like your style of selling or the product you're selling, there are other sellers out there that might interest them better. You can't please everybody, and that's kind of the way I look at it. Does that make sense? And if I'm attracting the people to my show that like how I'm selling and what I'm selling, and I'm raising the metrics that I'm focusing on over time, then that tells me that what I'm doing is working.
Yeah, you're capitalizing on getting the buyers that meet your selling style, which is the way everybody would, in my opinion, be able to succeed all that much more on live selling platforms.
That was a much
Yeah.
easier way to say it.
Yes. And let's face it, if we're taking this is my biggest gripe with whatnot polls, use them to have fun with. Don't try to there's people out there that take polls and then they quote them like they're gospel. You're polling a very biased audience who are in your show because they agree with the way you sell and what you like and what you do. So of
100%.
course, whatever poll you put up there is going to probably come out the way you want it to because that's the population you have. So I don't know. I just think that there has to be there far more unbiased ways of getting information from people because it's just too subjective when you're just asking like that.
Well, I mean, to me, I don't do polls. People are like, put a poll up. I'm like, no, I'd rather have the chat engagement, so I have that going for me as well. But
See
No,
what I
you're
deal with.
funny.
See what I do
uh
with.
so, and like Tracy is pointing out, that I agree with 100%. You're just going to be puffing your own ego up because they're going to answer the way you are. You already know how they're going to answer when you put a poll up. Obviously depends on what
You
the poll is.
you can even help sway a poll in your own direction just based off of what answer you put first
Yeah.
for them to select. I mean,
Mhm.
so I'm not a
Well,
particular fan of polls and shows.
no, and it's you
I'm
can
afraid not.
sway it by priming questions before you decide to put the poll up, and
Correct.
kind of, it's there's just too much.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure. I'm kind of curious to what people utilize polls for, to quantify certain, aspects of the way they sell, because I don't go into enough shows. So I don't, when we're talking analytics, are you saying people utilize polls from time to time in order to come up with some type of number to decide what they're going to do in their selling style, or their business?
What I've seen, and Lysandra and Tony, you're out there surfing probably far more than I am on various shows. Some of the ones I've seen, there's a big one going out on whether reduced shipping is do people only shop in reduced shipping or not? Some wording around that. I see a lot of what day should I go on polls. A lot of what do you want me to run polls? Like, do you want me to run shirts or pants or rings or necklaces, whatever? Those are probably like the three ones that I see most often when I'm out
Mhm.
there kind of.
So there's people out there doing these polls, and then they're treating them kind of like gospel and following whatever the poll results are,
I don't know if they treat them
or
like gospel. I know some of them quote them like they're,
yeah.
you know.
Okay. Well, I'm curious about if people are using those, like, what do you want me to
See,
sell? And then decide to go source that stuff and sell it. Or
I don't
is
know
there
if they.
more of a engagement thing that they're trying to accomplish by putting the polls up?
I've seen people use polls as a almost like their show notes before.
Yeah,
Really?
that's a different thing. That makes,
Yeah, quite a few people actually, and you know who they are, Tracy. Maybe you haven't paid attention, but
Maybe I
I've
haven't.
seen people use it where like, have you read the show notes? Yes, and then other
Oh,
times
yes.
it's
Okay.
like, hey, there's a meetup on this date for selection one, and the time is this on selection
Yeah.
two, and just things that they want to make sure because the show notes
Yes.
don't do anything; they just sit there,
yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
The
lots of
polls
people
are
forget
forced in
about
their
them.
face. They have
Correct.
to see it. Yeah, yeah. So they're accomplishing, kind of in a roundabout way, that I said I wish whatnot would do, and have like a thing where you acknowledge the show notes when you came into the room.
Yeah.
Click
Mm-hmm.
through. Yeah, I
Now,
don't think that's a bad idea.
I
But
think you made a good point about are they doing it in the chat for engagement versus using that poll feature. So we've been talking
mhm.
about the poll feature. I think using it in the chat is I do that all the time, constantly. Is particularly in my chat shows. Hey, tell me what you think. Do you do this? Do you do that? That's not, even if I ask, do you agree? It's more of an engagement feature than it is a, let me get some
Yeah.
statistical data here. It's more of
Yeah.
a, I just want to get people
Yeah.
Mhm.
moving and talking.
Going back to Tracy's show example of what was it, low viewer count but high conversion, and I talked about needing you need to look at getting more exposure. One of the ways to get more discoverability is engagement in your chat, not
Yeah.
the poll.
Sure is.
That I'm aware of. Poll does not help with discoverability.
I don't
I
think.
it feels like a very passive. So
Yeah.
I know I mean we always go on bunny trails, but to me, my belief, because it always, I'm thinking from a business perspective, anything that's going to lead to putting money into whatnot or any selling platform's pocket is what they're going to prioritize.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure they have analytics out there that show people that are actively in the chat will then be more inclined to bid. And then when they're more inclined to bid, they're going to be more inclined to buy. So to me, it kind of goes backwards from there. Somebody entering a giveaway or answering a poll is probably going to be, a factor that is heavily, it's weighted on the net, like on the low end. It's not really going to have a lot of weight in the effectiveness. Again, I don't know. No one here knows. And as we say, I don't even know if Whatnot knows 100% what really affects the most. But I think when they originally would have started programming this stuff, it would have been weighted that way, where polls and entering giveaways are going to be way down on the lower end of the spectrum, if they even affect it at all. Kind of like the tapping hearts thing, but obviously they have some new stock in that.
I have a question for you, for all of you. Have you, I know he's cracking me up there. Have you looked at the bidders versus the buyers statistic or analytic they have now on the in-show analytics on when, if you pop it out and look after your show, they now have how many people bid and how many people bought. I haven't looked at it a whole lot. I want to start looking at that in comparison to like gross people in the room. I want to start doing a little more just to see if there's correlations, just to see if there's what I can pull out of
I
it. But
I think the new numbers are extremely helpful. What disappoints me is they're not in the analytics page.
I know.
A bunch of those new
Yeah, I
numbers.
end up
So
closing out of them or forgetting
I
about
keep
them,
forgetting
and
too.
yeah,
But what I do know is I don't want them there in front of me while I'm selling.
Correct.
Yeah.
That I do know. I don't want those because then I'm focusing on stuff that I don't think is important. I think there's some nuggets of value there, and there may, in some of those, give you some metrics that you could help work towards. But I don't want them there in front of me while I'm selling live, because there's more potential for me, my personality, for it to negatively impact me than positively impact me. So, but I would like to look at them after the show is done, and I've yet to create a habit out of bringing those up to look at before, the conclusion of the show. Because I don't even know if I end the show, are they still there
You
for
can.
a little while?
So go in
Okay.
that top corner, and if you click on the little box and it says pop out, so it pops out and
Yeah.
comes up big on your screen, just click
Yeah.
anywhere else on your show and it kind
Yeah.
of
It
hides
goes
it.
behind there.
Yeah.
The last
Well,
time I did that, and then when I ended the show and I went to pull that back out, it was just a black screen.
then
I
what you need to
I have
do
never
is
seen it.
raid.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you raid out and then minimize. So just minimize your show. Like once you've raided and you've
Hmm.
got the other person on your screen, just minimize it. And then you can read that window for a few minutes. I have noticed recently though,
just for
after
a
like
few
5 or 10
minutes.
minutes, some of the data goes away. Not all of it, but some of the data
Yeah.
seems to disappear after like 5 minutes. So I try to do it like as soon as I raid, I try to minimize and jot down what I want to, remember or
Gotcha.
look at
That's
it.
why we're
Yeah.
missing it. Because we hurry up, we go because we do long shows, right? So we go like, okay, let's go to the bathroom, let's go get a drink, let's talk
And
about the show.
in about
Uh,
45 minutes, and it's gone. So there it is.
Yeah, and there's some new ones. I just noticed some yesterday morning. A couple new graphs. Couldn't tell you what they were. Didn't pay a whole lot of attention at yesterday, but I did
Yeah.
notice
I
more
just
and
want to
more
get a good
information.
Yeah, I just want to get a good clip to see what other,
Yeah.
good picture of one, just to see what other information is available, and if it's something I want to make sure I get that data on a regular basis, or the fact that it's just simple numbers, and I wouldn't think that putting that into the analytics would be overly expensive for what not to do.
They
It'd
already
be
have it,
nice.
obviously. It's already there. You would think they could just. Oh, I know what it was, what they just added. I think it was sales. Was it sales or viewers? It was one or the other. And there was a graph by like time increments, which I thought was kind of interesting to look at. So,
They're putting a graph in a live show.
yeah, it's part of those analytics. Of course, a lot of us aren't watching it live, but yeah, there was a graph. That was what I just noticed yesterday. And I'm pretty
There,
sure it was tied to sales, wasn't
there are
it?
several graphs,
Yeah.
not just one.
What
There are
about
several.
there is so many better places to put graphs for sellers to analyze than within a live show.
Yes.
I think Whatnot's starting to test the people's like ability to be distracted and still somehow get stuff sold and buyers
Right.
to buy.
Right.
Like honestly, with all the stuff they're starting to throw
But that
at
doesn't
people
help
to,
Whatnot. Whatnot wants you to sell higher average order value. So,
well, I
right?
think
Or
I
more
think their
quantity.
thoughts are that that's going to help. And when they initially did the incorporated the ability to see where you are financially, like your
Mhm.
sales numbers, because that used to not be there. They added that feature when earlier on you would have no idea till the show ended.
Yeah.
So when that got added, I was like, that's a good idea. That's pretty cool. You can see, so you can see if you're near your goal and what you need to do to get there and all that kind of stuff. But I've come to find out, again, this is me personally, that it distracts me more and can put me in a funk and actually decrease the values I'm getting, because if I don't see a number that I thought I was at, or it's lower than I was hoping it to be, it just affects my result. And if it's higher than I want it to be, I just don't have the same, because like I told, like you hear me talk about all the time, a negative affects you twice as much as a positive, makes you feel good. So it's just going to hurt it. It's going to create that downward spiral. So I just try to avoid it altogether. And I think that if you have too many numbers, people are going to see potential negatives in all those numbers. Like if you were, oh, my viewer count was here, and then I see it start dropping, or my, people are coming in a ton at this point. Now they're not coming in as much now. What am I doing wrong? It's like, maybe you're not doing anything wrong. Maybe, yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be because somebody else just ended their show, and that was huge, and a bunch of people went out to check out other shows, and you had a spike, or the vice versa. Somebody that they were waiting to go goes on, and you get, you lose some room. The amount of people aren't going to come in as frequently. So I'm not sure. That's why it'd be nice if they just had him here for us to go look at the end of the show instead of trying to shove it right in front of our faces.
Or having to wait
It
for
just
2 days
does
for the analytics screen to update. That's ridiculous. But
Right.
yeah. It just doesn't make sense for to me that they're gonna put graphs there for people to be analyzing why they're selling.
no.
Like that's completely counterintuitive.
For it to go away at the end of the
That
show.
that's going to lower the average order value because you got sellers up here paying attention to the numbers in this box, and it's going to stay at home to shop. They're talking about maintaining a sales space, but how can you maintain a sales pace if you're analyzing graphs? I obviously have not seen that. I have not seen graphs.
Yeah.
I've not
I
seen the
actually
screen once
like,
because you pop it out
yeah.
and put it behind the screen, and I've never seen it after the show.
Because then what
I know why.
you only have 3 lines of chat to be able to engage, which
Yep.
is one of the most important parts of your show.
I actually like
I-
having it hidden because, before they did this, you could still just see the one or two average order value, total sales, whatever.
Mhm.
I actually like having it hidden now because it really makes me focus in on what I'm doing. I, I'm enjoying it. I used to like watch it a little bit when it was just one or two numbers. And now I'm like, no, I like this. I like just focusing on what I'm doing. I know where I'm at and not worrying about it till
I
the
I
end.
also I think
Yeah.
not having that there starts creating like a subconscious reliance on you kind of gauging how things are going throughout your show, and I think that helps you more than having that number up there. Because there's shows that I've done, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling good. This is doing really good. And then at the end, I was like, well, those numbers were at the same that I was expecting. I thought it was going to be higher. Had I seen that they were not higher, it would have been even that much worse. There's no doubt about it. And if things are feeling good, they're feeling good, and if they're feeling bad, they're going to feel bad. And those numbers are only going to, you know,
Yep.
again, to me, be more negative. So I'm
And you've
glad too. I've noticed that where hiding those numbers behind, because I had a habit of looking behind me because it's on the screen behind me. That's the
yeah,
other thing that's good for me, because I would turn the screen around and talk, and people would see my gross sales numbers
yeah.
behind my head and stuff,
Yeah.
which
And
you
and
know.
you've talked about it in the past where you have a habit of, if you're selling a lot and you get to the point where you become profitable, you're done with it, right? You stop selling it, and the rest of it is just kind of whenever, because that's all your profit stuff.
Yeah,
So
that happens, or depending on where in the show that happens. If it happens halfway through the show, my allotted time, then the fun kicks in for
yeah,
everybody. Because I'm just like not worried about anything, and I'm like, oh, I'll sell these three or four things. But that doesn't happen a whole lot with the jewelry shows because the margins are not as high. I'm not hitting super profitability early on in the show where I can just do that. So
Stay home to
So
shop. I got it real quick. Stay home to shop. I have that. It's called a husband, and he
yeah. I
does
was gonna
this.
say
Ask,
Noel's probably in that
yes,
every day.
you can ask Tony and Lysandra. They have witnessed this during a show. He is literally my producer over here. Maybe not with an
okay.
earbud, but with signs, with hand signals. He is and sometimes it gets on my nerves. Y'all see it, but
I
there's a lot of times that it's very useful to me too. So
I'm not gonna lie. I probably would have killed Noel months ago. As my producer. So I have a question, and this is probably going to be directed more towards Jeremy than Tracy, um, but it could be for you, Tracy, too. I know, Tracy, you talk about you get bored with longer shows, and have you tried longer shows? That's going to be my first question. Have you tried longer shows?
the longest show I've ever done is 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours,
Okay.
40 minutes. So yeah.
Wow.
So then on Jeremy's side of it, you talk about your exhaustion at the end of the show affecting the sales and the average order value and things like that. Have you ever actually tracked at how much that's actually affecting your sales? Because I was thinking about doing that with our clothing sales. If we continue to do 5 hour shows, it's very apparent from everybody involved in our show. Tony, my boys, me, we're all exhausted that last hour. And are we almost shooting ourselves in the foot by trying to push through it to get that minimum number that Tony and I have deemed is what we want in a show?
so here, the true answer in an ideal world would be for me to push through, because at the moment I believe that sourcing would never become an issue with supply.
Hmm.
So that being a factor, I should be pushing myself through, but I just get, I'm just, I don't want to put more of a health side of me, mental health, all that kind of stuff, more of a personal attribute getting thrown in there on a monetary principle. If that wasn't going to be a concern of mine, where it's like, oh, I can just, go to bed, go to sleep, and get up and be fine, and not, it not bother me as much. Um, so I would just keep going, because I know, okay, so this stuff's not bringing as much money. Now, if sourcing wasn't as readily available, where it's very little to no concern of mine,
Hmm.
um, then you're talking a different conversation there. Then I'd be tracking it way more. But right now, I don't track it, because I don't see sourcing as an issue.
Yeah.
It's more me getting exhausted. I see the numbers going down, and I'm just like, this is not, enjoyable at all anymore for me at this point in time. I'm in pain. My back's hurting or something like that. I'm, physically not in a situation where, like, I have frozen shoulders. So that kind of stuff starts eating into it. The numbers are going down as a result, but just my physical discomfort, I'm done. Time to stop.
Yeah, and stay home to shop. That's kind of what we were thinking. Is the shorter shows allows you to bring more And Tracy's all about it. And if I was selling by
You too.
myself, short shows would be it because I'd be like Tracy. I'd just be bored. After an hour and a half, I'm bored. I'm done. You're not going to get me to sell after that. I couldn't read that sign. um,
Tracy
so
doesn't look
the
annoyed at all.
so the idea is, and I'm gonna start tracking it though. Our last, if we keep doing 5 hour long shows, I'm gonna track that last hour and see the difference in average order value, sell through rate, and our solds per hour. To
Yeah.
see how much of a difference there is in that last hour compared to the first 4 hours of the show. I think there's a big difference.
I
Noel, you
have
should have put that in
purposely
the bubble.
he should have, right? I have
Yep.
purposely, because I know around the hour and a half mark, I'm about done. Most of my shows are around 1 hour and a half, 1 hour 45 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just done. I'm bored out of my mind at that point. I'm over the conversation. I'm drained. I'm just, and that to some people doing 5 hour shows, God bless you. I could not keep up that pace. But knowing that about myself, I've purposely started putting items that I'm super excited about towards the end
Mhm.
to try to hype myself back up. So I think is and kind of tying this back to our analytics, as much as the analytics can tell you a lot of things, you know, that self reflection is what we were talking about. Nothing happens in a vacuum. That there's a lot of other factors that go into it too, and that's understanding yourself and your energy levels and what you can bring, what your limits are vitally important to the success of your shows. Um, and it was interesting that you brought that up, Lysandra, because I'm looking at ways, knowing where my limits are. I want to sell twice as much as I'm selling. The only way to do that is to have longer shows in the way that I'm
Or more
doing it.
shows.
Yeah, and there's no
So
more. I'm not adding any more. It's if I'm instead of doing 80 items, I want to do 130, 140 items a show. That's another hour. So it part of my growth plan and part of what I'm looking at when I'm doing projections and writing numbers is how do I get to that? Not just how do I source enough, how do I ship enough, how do I train myself to do that during a show?
The other way, and I know it's harder with vintage decor, but I do know you used to sell faster, is can you just sell faster?
To some degree, I'm selling pretty fast as it is.
You
I do
do.
a pretty good pace for vintage decor.
So the other luxury I have, and going to be, I've been saying I need to do this, and it's going to be happening. I was just talking to Em about this, um, incorporating breaks. She doesn't want to take breaks, but I'm like, you're going to. We're going to do breaks where I take 15 minutes, you sell. I have one of the shipping, somebody in the shipping department come in and bag and tag while she's selling. And then I'll come back and Em will take a 15-minute break while that person continues to bag and tag. And then we get back
Oh
to
yeah, go ahead
where
and
we
talk
were.
about our break.
So,
Go ahead.
That's a great idea.
Go ahead.
so it's no secret that Tony's kind of the salesperson in our duo, and we have been incorporating breaks. I've got two teenage boys helping us. They have to have breaks in a 5 hour show, but we had a raid of 125 people, and Tony kept about 40 of those people for almost an hour, which is
Awesome.
insane for a raid.
Mhm.
Typically, raids you're going to lose all of them, and you shouldn't feel bad that you're going to.
Mhm.
It's just that's just kind of how they go. But Tony kept like 30% of that raid for almost an hour. I start rotating breaks out. The boys take their breaks. I take a break, and Tony's like, "Well, when's my break?" And I'm like, But you got extra people on this show." And he's like, "Well, I'd like a break." I said, "Okay." So Silas and I started selling. Tony goes on a 7 minute break. We lost all 40 of those people in 7 minutes.
Yep.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that's an exception to most situations.
It
And this
is.
can happen. It's like when M comes in and starts selling, room count starts going down because
Mhm.
I was the one selling it from the beginning, and that's what people are used to, and they kind of just kind of start swaying out. But then when I get back in, it starts coming. The numbers start getting back to the normalized numbers.
No more breaks for Tony.
I know, Michelle. Hello.
Yeah. And I do want to mention to Tracy's point about people that are trying to extend the amount of time that they can stay on. If you can get strategically product placement in order to elevate your own personal, enjoyment, selling. I can't do that a lot, but to that note, the effectiveness of that Monday I'm talking about, I'm usually done by like 12:30 because we do that second sale. However, that second sale wasn't happening and things were going so well that day that I was just like, I don't want to stop. I felt great. Like my energy stayed up because the numbers were doing so great. Dollar wise, my room count was actually, as for an average, it was on the lower side. And I told you the new buyer count was, I kept seeing pretty frequently new buyers coming in, and buying. And my average order value on the item, especially for the inventory of what I had at that point in time, was selling. It was all doing spectacular. I was extremely happy and excited about what was going on. I even grabbed some other stuff that I was like, usually I wouldn't run this at the end of the show, but I was pulling out native stuff and it was getting the prices that I like to see it getting. And that just kept me going. I was just like, yeah, this is going to, so for anybody, like watching or listening, if you, depending on how you run your show, I can't do that. But if you are in a situation like Tracy, that is a very effective way to elongate your show, and the energy you have to keep it going is not just necessarily product placement for your buyers, but product placement for yourself as far as when you're going to sell items.
It works. Have any of you done anything in recognition or utilized the new feature where in your chat and it says, what does it say, buyer or new buyer? I think it's green. It says buyer in the chat next to anybody who's bought. Are you using that data in any way, shape, or form within your shows?
I don't see it because it's only on my big screen, the screen, and I don't have that in front of me. I don't see it in the chat. Is it
I don't
supposed to be
even know what that actually.
Because I see it on
Yeah.
my
Used to
chat.
kind of do that though.
You
Do
see
you
it on
ever
your
notice
phone?
that
No, you don't
even
see it on the
8
phone.
months ago?
You don't see it on the phone.
So,
On the computer
Yeah.
chat, if you have a buyer, it'll turn the chat green. If you have a new buyer, it'll give it a little purse with the
Like,
sign that says new buyer.
yeah, I
It'll
like,
turn green.
so like it highlights anybody who's bought in my show, and if they're new, like I see it in my chat. I've been
Yeah,
finding it
I think that's a
distracting, but
oh. Yeah, I think it would potentially be distracting as well, but I would like to see what that looks like. So maybe that's why and thankfully they decided to do that, because usually you just throw that all at you and then they've already thrown enough of new distracting elements to their format. I find it extremely distracting when I'm seeing rainbow
all the
chat
fonts,
and all the
yes.
different
they're
fonts,
so bad as a seller.
and then all the different, people are tapping and you see all these different things, and then the big huge, like, oh, there goes half the screen. Luckily I'm not doing 5 second sudden death, because if I was just hammering stuff out, no one would even see what the item is. But that, I would like to be able to potentially look at that and see what that looks like, but I'm not going to go out of my way at this point to put a tablet or a laptop
Yeah.
in front of me just to see what it is. But it seems like it could be something to elevate your chat engagement.
And
I
that's why I was
think
trying to figure out ways to use it. Luckily, I don't see on the computer screen, I don't see the funky font. Thank goodness, because that drives me insane. But I do see the other side of it.
so. Unfortunately for us in the clothing shows, we're almost exclusively looking at computers.
Yeah, I've seen the buyer
I've
tag.
seen it,
I
but
can see where that's important in a high room count where the chat is going insane, and the host wants to focus on whatever that buyer is talking about, back and forth. You can see that tag, kind of like what Michelle said with the booster or whatever. But I don't see where that's a big issue in smaller rooms.
speaking of the Jumbotron graphics, I wonder if Whatnot is looking at the one. Has that stopped a lot of sudden death sellers from going so fast? I could see that happening.
I absolutely would not sell in a 3 second
I
second
wouldn't
step
either.
down because of the
The
jump.
Jumbotrons. So I wonder if Whatnot's looking at those analytics and are sellers, one, slowing down their shows, shows that we're typically very fast paced and is whatnot looking at that.
Yeah, it has to slow everything down, Dragonfly, because in a 3 second sudden death, that graphic is lasting what, 2 to 3 seconds, right?
That wouldn't. That's just weird to me because if the data, if they would just come out and say the data says this is not a good option, so we're getting rid of the 3 seconds. Then why wouldn't they just
Yeah.
get rid of the 3 seconds instead of trying to use a roundabout way to try to help eliminate it? If I'm reading into what you're saying correctly, Lysandra.
I'm not saying that they're using the jumbotrons as a way to try to stop people from
Oh,
doing
no.
sudden death. What I'm saying is whatnot losing revenue
Yes.
because they
Oh, you're
didn't
wondering
think
if
of the impact of that jumbotron.
I don't think they thought of a lot of the impacts of that stuff because there was no like testing it. It was just like, hey, everybody, here it is. You're dealing with it.
No, Noel, you just put in there. You don't see the graphics.
Yeah, but
Customers see the graphics. So if
Yeah.
I'm running a 3 second sudden death show and Lysandra purchases something and gets the big jumbotron, then I'm running fast, right? Because let's say it's the bracket challenge or dollar holler, and I'm trying to sell as many items in that time frame as I possibly can. So now I've run 3 seconds, but Lysandra's got a big jumbotron thing up, and none of the customers can
can't
see
see
her
the item.
next 3 second sudden death item.
It's gone.
And
You
and
wasted.
then you
Just
have
not.
the other. You have like the 5 second sudden death because anybody that's on a Android it's pretty much 3 seconds to them.
Correct.
Yes.
I already have
So
to slow it down. Yep.
yeah. So I'm going to tell you right now that jumbotron stuff. I was putting into place an idea that I just completely scrapped because of those.
Hmm.
I was
Really?
going to do a grid because I'm trying to get rid of inventory. I'm trying to do my quarterly like backlog inventory, and was planning on setting up tables, gridding out a bunch of stuff, and just doing on a Friday, doing 5 second sudden
Yep.
death, just going down, bang, bang, bang,
Yep.
bang,
I
bang, bang,
wouldn't.
bang. And that happened. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I mean, could I go to
No.
7? I still don't like it. I'm just like, so going to 10 second sudden death anymore doesn't really change my numbers enough to make it make
Nope.
sense.
No, it doesn't.
So I just I don't know if they thought that through. I know we're bunny trailing here, but I think it's
Okay.
viable,
Yeah.
nice stuff to talk about. I did want to ask a question to everybody. What's your what analytic do you do that's outside of what whatnot provides you? Is there something that you rely on personally in your business that you analyze that utilize some type of analytic perspective on that's not readily available to you from whatnot?
My main one's sell through rate, but and then health and beauty and food, I never really looked at that because everything's sold. But with the clothing, I'm heavily looking at that because that determines what I should be picking and sorting out of these bales and giving to Tony to show.
And I started looking at that with watches because she kept giving me crap that I'm only averaging 30 items sold an hour, but in reality, I was showing 80. So,
So you guys keep track of that independently. So like you look at how many items you tried to run that didn't sell and come up with your sell through rate.
Hmm.
So
well, we keep them separate, right? Because our intent is that we only run the items once. So literally, she'll just go at the end of the show and count how many items were no sales,
hmm
average it out per hour that we were there. So, but yeah,
so
I mean, it's definitely sell through rate is something we want to keep track of because it's going to help what she's pulling out of the bales and hopefully get the majority of those out.
And eventually, once we learned, we won't look at that as quite as hard. But I know for other sellers, especially ones that aren't necessarily doing dollar starts, sell through rates plays a big part in the amount of money that they're making.
And surprisingly, though, very few people look at it. I think if more people paid attention to sell through rate and started looking at the cost associated with bringing out the inventory, showing the inventory, putting the inventory back, bringing it back out again, photographing it, putting it in the bin, compared to looking at compared to that sell through rate, we would have a lot more people doing lower starts and selling stuff than we do currently, because they
Yeah.
think that, holding out for $20 is far better, 6 months down the road than getting 10 today. So, because they
Yeah.
don't look at sell through rate. There's almost a direct correlation. If you
Units
watch,
per transaction.
if
Yeah,
you watch
I want that
the
explained a
people
bit.
that ask questions, or the people that say I can never do low starts and never do dollar starts, and then you go to their shows, there is almost an absolute direct correlation to their sell through rates when you watch their shows and you hear the questions. It's like glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
So
I can answer Bill's question, and he
Oh,
can correct me
Thank
if I'm
you. I
wrong.
was gonna ask you if you know
He
what he
sells in
thinks.
coins. Most people will sell coins individually, so he'll take a pile of coins and sell it as one lot, and
He's
that'd be
talking. So he's talking
units
about the
per
lots.
transaction. So if he sells a pile of Morgan dollars, like a whole tube, that's going to be X amount of units in that one transaction. Is that what you're saying, Bill? You can correct me if I'm wrong or not.
And why would you look at that, Bill? It's still, at the end of the day, it's still what you pay for the lot versus what you got for the lot.
That's I make sure he's that what I'm saying is what he means. I'm reading into.
and I think it's part of the new analytics, but the sales generated per hour, the dollar amount of sales per hour, that's part of the new
it
analytics,
is.
right?
Yep.
See, that'll be nice for clothing shows for me to track that last hour now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
be
I'm
careful,
gonna.
because
I,
it will. I mean, it's
Um,
still in essence the same, but like when I do an hour and a half show, like it looks like you sold. Sometimes it looks, that number, when you read it, there is truth to it, but you could read it the wrong way and it looks like you're doing better than you are. I'll have to take a screenshot or two and show you. Like, look at my average order value compared to the the per
I'll leave
sale.
a note up on my screen to make sure that I look at it
And
as soon
take a
as the show's
screenshot.
done and get a
Yeah.
screenshot.
so
But
to
right
go
now,
back to Bill's situation.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, because I'm still
Yeah.
Okay, so
confused by that.
here's
There.
the other thing. Here's the other thing with Bill's situation. Let's say you're selling individual coins,
Hmm.
okay, and then you're paying attention to what your unit metric is, because the way he work, the way his inventory is very like you repetitive. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's
Yeah,
it's a
of
world
course it
where
is.
so if he can look at Morgan dollars and go, I'm getting this much for 6 or 8 at a time in comparison to one at a time, the unit per that unit per transaction metric is going to tell you that number, what's the most effective way of selling
So it's no different than
as well.
bundling in the vintage decor world. It's no different than when I say sell 4 plates instead of two. You get more
Yeah,
money.
but yeah,
I
as
did-
long as you
Or
can
is he
repeat.
Well,
or
So
is he
like there
talking about
Yeah.
how many items is a one person buying?
and
no no
and
no
the
no
reality.
Shipping
he's
time.
talking about because
Woof.
what did he say? Yay.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're talking about how is one person buying 4 items?
That no, okay. So what I was reading into it is not what he's talking about.
Thank God, because I almost guarantee lots of Morgan dollars sell less than singles. Even if you're accounting for the shipping time, I don't know that it's worth it.
Bill, is
Long
that
term.
true? I know that's not true. I know there's times he gets more in bulk.
Really?
I know. And if you actually did pay attention to that, which that's not what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I know because he talks to me about it from time to time. About the
Interesting.
Ukrainian. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I like he says wrong after two people said something, so I don't know who's wrong.
It's like asking a yes or no question and getting
Maybe.
9.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, he's
Yeah.
talking about avoid like paying attention to that because yeah, he doesn't like obviously one off, having a bunch of people that are buying one because that's a lot more shipping time is probably what he's also
I know,
referencing.
Bill.
I will say that we track shipping time quite a bit, and that's definitely not a metric that Whatnot could ever give you.
No.
And related to how many auctions or how many hours we were live, we check that quite a bit.
I'm really big on the shipping time. I really want to make sure that we keep on the shipping time metric.
So-
Because that is obviously the first thing that we want to pay to outsource, right?
one of the things that I used to keep track of, and I am going to start again, was I used to log how many hours my shipping department would work on any given sale.
Mm-hmm.
But that it turned into something very like you could pretty much know exactly what it was. And now I've shifted a lot of the business model where I'm going to have to get that data again. But the metrics that I use very frequently is my estimated sales number and total estimated earnings, the difference between that, whether that percentage is going up and down, because it tells me what my free shipping is potentially doing and not doing based on what I'm selling, as far as that correlation goes. And then I bring in my shipping costs, obviously, that I have to wait because Whatnot will have the estimated. So I have to wait till after they're done because then it subtracts all those. So I know, what my percentage is essentially going to be of my free shipping to know if it's going in the wrong direction.
You're talking about the actual shipping cost, not the cost of having labor to do the shipping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The labor to do the shipping became very like it was pretty much on point. I knew exactly how much time they were spending. So I relayed that to hours of shipping time to hours of sell time. Like how long, and that was very like consistent. But now I have to do it again because things have changed in my shipping department.
And that's much easier to calculate with the jewelry shows than it is the Friday show.
Well,
Just saying.
I know you don't have to. We already know. Yeah.
And what's yours, Tracy?
Besides some of the similar ones that you guys track, one that you haven't mentioned that I pay close attention to is my average cost to acquire versus my average order value. So I'm always looking to make sure I have a good spread between those two. So that's a constant.
Yeah.
I update that almost daily. Almost. I mean, when I'm
You do
sourcing
it by
the days that
show,
I source,
correct?
I do the
Are you doing it by
sold.
show or by item?
So no, I do both. So that by show, I log the number of items sold, and then when I source, the number of items I purchase. So I have a running average on my along with the dollar amount, and that ties into my inventory management. But I always at any given time, I can say what is my average cost to acquire for this year, and what is my average order value for this year, making sure always have a spread between those. But it also helps guide me if I start seeing that shrink. I'm buying way too many high dollar items. I need to pull back. It guides my sourcing. So.
Yeah. And the average order value does the same for me, and just a little bit different. You do you pick per item. Like I
Yep.
said in the last chat show, we talked about this. I can kind of gauge based on the type of content that is potentially being sold to me in bulk. And I just kind of like glance or go through quickly to get a rough count. I'm not using exact, obviously exact numbers, but then I can just like, all right, is this going to hit my average order value? Is this the stuff I'm looking for? So this is what I can pay for it.
Yeah. And part of the reason I started tracking that way was to get to that point was I really, really need to wrap my head around this and have a really good understanding of what I'm doing on a smaller scale in order to efficiently do it on a bigger scale.
100%. And you already know I could go on and on about all the relief you get from knowing you did it in an aggregate as opposed to knowing what you paid for this item and that item, because as long as you're getting that average during your sale, you're happy.
Absolutely.
Even if something the person that sold it to you has in their mind, they sold it to you for $50 and you sold it for whatever your average order value is, let's say it's 40. To them you lost money, but to you don't care because you're looking at it in aggregate or averages.
Exactly.
I do like the clothes. It is a static cost.
Stay home to shop. Yes. I look at monthly, quarterly, annually. I have a ton of analytics I look at. I probably go overboard. But I have to say, I keep it very simple. Even though I just said I go overboard,
No,
I use Excel. I don't use fancy accounting software. I use Excel. I have key things I'm focused on to meet my goals, and that's what I focus on, and I analyze those heavily. I don't analyze everything.
You can't tell me I'm slacking at 8:15.
I have a question for you, Tracy, and I don't know that you can so much consider this an analytic, but you talk a lot about that you shouldn't account for your labor within your business
Correct.
if you're not paying yourself in salary. But even when Tony and I were paying ourselves salary, I still kept track of our time by the hour
Yeah,
that we were spending on certain projects. For me, one, so I could see if it was scalable to hire it out.
correct.
Um,
100% correct.
So
and
you're misunderstanding my what I say about that. So let me just
okay,
clarify. I like to correct that people say I have to charge $30 for this because I had to source it and I had to clean it, and they try to justify the time they spend in their starting price of their items. If you are a reseller and you are not on salary, if you are a sole proprietor, you're filing a Schedule C, you're not on salary, you're not paying yourself a paycheck, there is no time component within a pricing model of figuring out how, going from I paid $5 to this, I got to charge 30 for it. There really isn't a pricing, like a way that you're judging your time in that. Where time becomes important, where I 100% agree, is at the end of the month. I look at my net profit and I'm looking at, okay, I spend about 20 to 30 hours a week on whatnot, probably upwards of 30 to 35. The time I spent on whatnot, is my net profit worth it? Is it worth it? Am I making enough money to justify all this time? And that's a decision I'm making on a month by month basis. I'm evaluating it and saying, yeah, I'm doing good, I'm growing something, or no, you got to cut back, or, whatever that decision is. But there is no concept. It drives me insane. The cost that goes into your item, if you are reselling, if I buy this phone to resell it, my cost of goods is the phone, the shipping, the taxes, and any cost to improve it. Time is not what I record in there. It's not part of your cost of goods. And people try to take that mentality that, oh, well, my time is part of what my cost in that, and it's not. So
Yeah, Tracy, I think is saying to me, you flip it around. The profit you make off the item is what's supposed to compensate your time.
mhm.
yes.
Meaning that if you're selling it and not making enough money, you're sourcing wrong and selling wrong.
Well, and what Lysandra is saying is we took the time versus the profit to determine if I can hire it out. So it's still a metric that we would look at because I still, to scale it into something larger, I need to hire that part out. I can only work so many hours.
But even if you don't want to scale it, if you're at least tracking your time, you can determine you can determine inefficiencies within your process.
100%. I'm not against tracking time. I'm against using that to justify the cost of your items when you're strictly reselling. When you're handmade, I think it's completely different. Like I always talk about, when you're pricing items as a handmade person versus a reseller, two different beasts. I'm just against it in the pricing model and people using that as a justification for their prices. I think they have the wrong concept. But I totally am on the same page with you before I hired somebody, I had to have an estimate on how much time I was shipping so I would know how much I'm going to pay somebody.
100%. And as Noel pointed out 4 minutes ago, we're down to a 12-minute warning. So get our last thoughts in on analytics. Any other questions in the chat if anybody has any, and we'll call round 2 of analytics done in about just over 10 minutes.
Do we have any questions we missed? Because I'm terrible at paying attention to.
Not really. I've just seen comments. I've not really actually seen questions.
I will say, when you guys are focusing, for anybody that's listening and you're focusing on an analytic that you want to improve, make sure that you only change one thing at a time.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And then test that thing to see if it makes a difference. Because if you go in and you look at your analytics and you're like, oh, I need to raise, we'll say, average order value, but you make 5 changes and your average order raises, you don't know which change actually worked. And what and what's the term, throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You don't know which string of spaghetti stuck and why it stuck.
And to expand on that, when your goal is to expand one analytic, make sure you're paying attention to what it does to the others.
To the others.
Yeah.
100%.
Because if you're not, you might be losing ground somewhere else
That's
as at an expense to gaining ground. So you might just
Absolutely.
be, not really accomplishing your end goal.
For instance, you can do more shows and make more money, but is that gross when you look at your net? Are you really netting more? So, like, just trying to expand a little bit more on what Jeremy's saying. I mean, there's
Yeah.
off the top of my head, I can't think of really good examples, but
I just got to tell you the thing I'm irritated about because I never, ever, usually with enough time given, don't remember what I wanted to talk about when I lost my train of thought.
Aw.
I'm getting too old. I still don't remember what I wanted to say.
You're going to remember 10 minutes after the podcast.
Yes.
Nah. I'd have to go back and watch it at this point.
That's what happens to me.
Yeah.
I always remember it 10 minutes after whatever it was ended.
That was pretty
That's
funny
not
though.
true.
'Cause
That's not true. She will come at it
2 days later.
3 weeks later. We will be doing something completely arbitrary, and she'll come back and just spit it out. And I'm like, what the heck was that? Oh, that's what I forgot 3 weeks ago that I meant to. I'm way past that. Anyway, sorry.
Sometimes it takes 3 weeks for that squirrel to find the nut. Just saying.
yeah.
This girl's already buried and stomped that thing down in the dirt.
When
So-
to,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
What should what not sellers expect? When should what not sellers expect to be profitable?
That's a hard question to answer.
There is no
there's
static
too many,
answer to that.
yeah, too many
Yeah,
variables.
you can't expect that in a specific time frame across every different type of seller and product category and
I mean, technically speaking, so we just did the little test of the live selling at the 127. And one of the things I wanted to see was, could you take $300 and triple it, quadruple it? What could you do with that $300 by the end of a weekend if you just kept round robining it back into a product?
Mhm.
So you're taking $300, zero inventory, and what can you do with it? And I mean, technically speaking, you can be profitable from the first show.
You could do that. It's just not necessarily worth the time that it takes to do it.
No,
In my
No.
opinion.
dollar amount of sales per hour were so low that it was not worth it for Tony and I to explore it anymore. Not for us, at least. For some people, it'd be
you're
perfectly
profitable,
fine.
but the profit wasn't enough to sustain what you needed.
Not for
financially.
overhead and things like that. And when you get into having an outside warehouse or store and you start looking at
Infrastructure
labor and infrastructure, there's a lot of things that I look at and mean, like, man, if we were just doing this out of our house, this is a decent little income that you can make. But
If Lysandra and I were legitimately just in our house, her and I together, no employees, no buildings, no anything, no big inventory costs, we could literally go do the little yard sale, live sales, estate sale, live sales, and be totally comfortable with that. Which, hey, heads up, everybody, you can do that and make a decent living doing it, for real.
We'll go back to well, there you go. We were talking what was that? Last show? You can sublet your entire warehouse, turn it into an income generator, and go sell out of your house, break your rule that you won't take business home, and go do what you just said.
I cannot do that with Tony. Tony will have our house looking like your warehouse in 2 days flat. 2 days. That's all it takes. Sometimes it doesn't even take that long.
How about
Negative.
you work out of a shed then?
Well, I've tried that too. It creeps.
The scope creep is real, Jeremy.
He used to have a storage unit, a 500 square foot storage unit too. Nope, that wasn't enough. And then it just.
Yes.
Anyway, the one rule I can make is not in the house.
We're gonna see. I'm gonna see what I can get accomplished in that warehouse before the end of the year.
Yeah. You should.
You're gonna need more Friday shows.
Yeah, you're gonna need more Friday shows.
Nah, there's gonna be certain files of stuff that are going to other people.
Oh, gotcha.
Tracy, did you have anything that we didn't touch on?
I didn't
Or
have
that
anything,
you just
no.
want to.
Oh man, are we out? We're out of words early?
Wow.
Here's where we're running
Hey,
into a
Julia.
problem is because you asked the question at the beginning, so we don't have the rapid fire questions at the end.
I mean, I got some more.
I guarantee you
Yeah, do
she's
some
got more
rapid
of
Good.
fire.
those.
That's always fun.
I got to go to the
That's out
top
of
of my
house.
notes. All right. If
Yes, I drive Lysandra nuts with it, Julia. I can legitimately fill our house up in 3 hours.
yeah, I one of the best decisions I ever made was separating the work from the house. So I at least have somewhere to go home to that I don't have to think about work if I don't want to.
Pathways.
Pathways, like literally pathways.
It's not a good living
Like a hoarder
experience.
house.
It looks hoarder.
All right. If your sold per hour rises but average order value falls, are you improving?
No, you're
I thought I was
just
done
working
thinking.
harder to make
You
less
asked for
money.
questions.
No,
If your sold per hour rises but your average order value decreases, is that what's
Are you improving? I'm
The
a
answer
Tracy.
is you. It's,
no, you're
if the amount of items I'm selling per hour increases, but my average order value decreases.
I mean, you can't just blanket statement say that. So no. One, it
I
depends on
mean,
how much lower it is versus how many more items you're selling per hour, and it absolutely depends on your cost of goods.
I think you're confusing volume with productivity at that point. If that's the scenario, it's you're just moving stuff, but is it productive? Is it making money?
I mean, if I'm moving 10 extra items per hour at a 25-cent item value less, yeah, okay. Who cares?
That depends on what your previous
Wait a
average.
minute. Wait
There
a
could
second.
That's
This
what I'm
is
saying.
historic.
there's too
Did
many
Tony just
factors.
say a quarter doesn't matter? Did we just hear a quarter doesn't
Oh,
matter out of Tony's mouth?
that was a good catch. That was a good one.
For
Oh,
10 additional items. Hey, I will say, listen. $1.25 has not hurt the amount of items you sell in an hour.
I just gotta give you a hard time on it. That's all.
I
Yeah.
know you are.
I have no problem with people decreasing their average order value and make it up in volume. You can very easily turn that into a profit because that's what started my company into record-breaking profits was going down
Yeah.
that lane.
you 100% can be profitable doing that, and well, that's how we've started on whatnot.
Yeah.
But are you going in the wrong direction? As Tracy said, are you going into being less productive versus more efficient with your time? Which your time is the most valuable thing you have.
But I think it may be
Let
two
me
different
Yeah, that's
models
crazy.
too.
It is, but let's talk about the platform we're selling on and how much more effective it is because of the buyer base you create by providing more opportunity for people to bid on more items.
More
Just and that's it. So, and creating buyers in this environment is what, in my opinion, you're after, getting your brand buy-in through literal purchases and or bidding. So the volume provides a lot of opportunity for that to bring those people along as you move. And I've gone through that. I went through deciding to be volume, pulled back from volume, okay, and decrease the amount of items, but increase my average order value. Now, since I've had the experience and know what it takes to uh, allow for volume, now I can start driving. Okay, I'm going to go back to volume, but retaining the average order value at the same time. So it's a seesaw effect, a building element. So I don't think there's ever going to be a situation. I shouldn't say ever, but there's not going to be a one rule that can be applied as it to for it to be a yes and a no.
Right, because I mean, I can increase my average sales by or my average orders by 30%, but only lose a 5% order value.
So
That is irrelevant to me because now I'm still selling 25% more product,
yeah,
right?
look at it from the argument of teachable systems, where you say, if I could do enough of volume to just have somebody stand there, that I don't need to train all the other elements and attributes that
Hmm.
me, the way I sell, need to be understood and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
leverage to get the values that I'm looking for. You can fix that. You can potentially fix that with volume Like you look at Invicta and all those places that where it's just somebody there, that's where you get the chat screamers where it's just one item after another. Doesn't matter. They're selling it for $10, $12. I don't know. There's no way they have, $1 in those watches. They cost more than $1 to make. So
They
that's
can't
super low.
possibly, Jeremy. They can't. They can't possibly cost much more than that.
What, with the amount that they're selling them for?
Yes.
Whatever it is, their profit margins are not very high, so they're making it up in volume.
Yeah.
But again, that's the trainable system. Here's this brand new thing, boom, 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 and so they're that or they're losing tons of money. I don't know, but I don't think that's really the case. They wouldn't have 4 channels running the same system.
Selling 1 million, 2 million products a year.
Oh, I literally just got who you guys were talking about. That took me long enough.
Well, he said Invicta.
Oh, did he? I missed that. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling well.
Okay. Well, it is 8:30, so
We had time for one question.
there it is. Anything anybody wants to wrap up with?
I don't think so. No.
Press that like button.
And subscribe.
Subscribe. Like. Thumbs up. Press the thumbs up.
Yeah, push all the buttons and thingies.
Yeah. Jeremy likes it when you
Jeremy
push all
loves it. All right, bye, guys.
We'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Catch you all later.
See you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.